Music is like a dream, one that I cannot hear. Ludwig van Beethoven. Welcome to Family Awareness. Music speaks without words. It reaches the soul and it takes you to a beautiful world. In this episode, we will have with us Kathie Lichtenwalter, a violin instructor and author. And from inside the studio, we have April Armstrong. Kathie Lichtenwalter, welcome to Family Awareness Talk Show. During these days, people around the world prepare for concerts since it is the month of comfort and peace. First of all, could you please tell us how you started to play music and who had inspired you first?
Well, I was 5 years old when my mother started me in violin lessons. That was not normal back then. That was before Suzuki time, and how he popularized young children learning the instrument. But she had a friend who was a piano teacher, and she convinced my mother, this friend, that music was good for children. And my mother found a teacher that was willing to take a 5-year-old. He didn't have a violin, but they found a very wealthy person in Miami, Florida, who had a lamp made from a little violin. So they took apart the lamp and they plugged up the holes and let me use it for a year until I was big enough to get the size of violins that were available. It was my mother's thing. She talked me into wanting it, and I was open to it. But I wouldn't have known anything about it if she hadn't decided.
Kathie Lichtenwalter, do you see that the parents can play a vital role for their child's mission?
Actually, for a young child, the parents can feed the interest, secure the child's attention and their desire, and also make the decision and keep the child to the decision. So a child alone is not going to go through the incredible discipline that's required for entry-level violin playing. The child needs a parent on every level, and sometimes you have a very motivated child and the parent this supports, but most often you have a child that likes music, like most children, and wants to do it because it's action. Violin is a mechanical instrument, but very, very few children automatically want to do the work. Now, I have one student right now who is driven, and he will do anything I ask him to do, but that's very, very rare.
What are the advantages of classical music on the school students in comparison with the one who listens to rock music?
The definition of classical music is probably very fluid here in our discussion. And the definition of rock music, because rock music has the elements of classical music, but they're out of balance. So I'm not sure how to compare, except that there is research that shows that exposure to a complex music that has lasted the test of time and reveals some organization and some balance is very good for the mind, for the child's mind, for the psyche, for the audio organization that takes place in the brain when you're listening to music that has been proven to be an art. And I will say that some rock music has some excellent musical qualities. So I'm reticent to compare the one with the other. But in training, the classics that are usually identified as the European complex musical compositions are good for the mind, good for the listening ear. And my father was an excellent music listener, and he knew what he was listening for, and he was able to analyze it. But he couldn't play an instrument. And yet his mental training in music listening organized his thinking. I am sure that you don't have to play an instrument for music to be a benefit to your thinking and your emotional processes. But there is a lot of research that says that classics provide children with a good basic training. And obviously that's where the violin has arisen out of. The European composers had the violin as we know it, and they composed for it. So it was, we have that to analyze. But I'm not sure you could also, or I am sure you could also take some of the classic Arabic music that reflects the folk art of this region, and listening and understanding and dancing and making music with it is also very beneficial. So I think just because the research has been done with Mozart and Bach, that's an established fact. But I think other genres of music are also very healthy and very, very good for the child's development.
Kathie Lichtenwalter, would you please advise parents who are willing to teach music to their children?
My advice, once you start it, you're in for the long haul. You have to believe you're giving it to your child, not because you want to make them a fine musician or even to make them proud, to make you proud. You're giving it to them for their development, and I don't care how they pace, how they progress, whether they like it or not. You're giving it to them as part of their education. So the immediate results can be trying. It's hard to practice every day. It's hard to make sounds that nobody in the family enjoys. It's hard to stay by a child who is struggling mechanically to do music. And they might love music, but the mechanics of the violin is both large motor and small motor, and it takes so many different gifts for it to work. And it has to be done so slowly and so tediously that my advice is stay by it. Be patient, be persistent. But once you decide the child loves music in their heart and wants to be a music maker, then you just hold their hand through the journey. And a good teacher will give them the returns and the rewards of advancing on their own measure, on their own standard, not comparing them with anybody else, but realizing that this is the child's learning process, and they're able to see how they're getting better and better, even if it's very small increments. But that takes tremendous persistence and patience. And a good teacher, a patient teacher, a persistence teacher.
Kathie Lichtenwalter, a violin instructor, thank you so much for providing us with these precious information about music. We go back to the studio with April Armstrong. She will tell us a lot about music in Lebanon and United States and her personal experience in music while she's preparing to choirs and to special events. Welcome, Ms. April Armstrong.
Thank you.
Please, would you tell us a lot or a little bit about you?
It's great to be here. I just want to start by saying that I never really consider myself a musician as much as a pure singer. And I make that distinction because I have a lot of friends who are much better musicians than I am, but singing has always been my passion. I did train a little bit in terms of beginning piano. I took it for some years, but that's not what started me on my journey of music. Not at all.
That's amazing. You know, when did you start playing music or singing, and who had inspired you first?
Okay. So when I was a little girl, I sang all the time. And in fact, on my street, I still have some lifelong friends with whom we would make shows in our backyards and invite our families and charge tickets. And we would turn boxes over and stand on them and wear costumes and sing for our neighborhood. This was a lot of fun. So I was probably about 8 years old when I started doing that. And I stood on a box and I sang Fame. Do you know Fame?
Yeah, of course.
Baby, look at me. I was 8 years old, and I really meant every word of it too. I just love singing. So my influencers were pop mostly. Now, to back up a little bit, my grandfather was a classical pianist, and his sister was an opera singer. So I do have music running through my blood, if you will. But in my family, I grew up on, my dad introduced me to hard rock, and I grew up with listening to the 50s oldies every night from my mom. I did not grow up in a believing home. My parents were very far from God. But music was a way that I loved to express myself. It wasn't until some years later when I came to faith that the direction or the passion of my music changed tones. And I began to sing in church, and I began to sing in choirs, and even music competitions. The first time I ever sang publicly alone was when I joined a competition.
Wow.
I was very shy, actually, and I didn't like to perform in front of people until I actually performed. So I practiced privately, and then I just came out one day on stage and said, "Here I am, I'm here to sing for you." And I came in second place. This was my first debut.
You know, people listen to Christmas carols. Most of the times they put them in their cars and they listen to them on TVs, and they watch choirs from around the world. But many people don't know that these are hymnal songs. They go back to like 100 years. So what would you tell people about singing in Christmas time and the time you used to sing for other singers who are not in that path that you still follow till our days?
Actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because before I knew God, I always say He knew me and He drew Himself to me. And I really think one of those ways was through music. It may sound funny, but I was interested, because I was so interested in singing, I remember joining a Christmas caroling event in my neighborhood. Nobody else did it. I was again about 10 or 11 years old, and I told my mother I'm going to sing, and I was the only child. And I went up by myself and I started learning Christmas carols.
Wow.
Now, in my home, we did not sing Christmas carols. I did not know any spiritual Christmas songs. And so I started to learn songs like "O Little Town of Bethlehem," "How Still We See Thee Lie," "Above Thy Deep and Restless Sleep," you know, "The Silent Stars Nearby," "Yet in the Dark Street Shineth." I learned all of these words, but I didn't know what they meant. I was learning very deep theology about who Christ is, how He was born. And these were stories that were not allowed in my home. And so I started singing them and harmonizing. And I remember going from house to house. This is what you do when you Christmas carol. You knock on people's doors and they open it up, and we start singing Christmas songs like "Joy to the world, the Lord is come." And I was singing about how the Lord is come, and I was thinking, who is this Lord? Who is Jesus? Who is this Christ child?
Oh, this is very touchy, you know. You know that Lebanon had passed through sad times because of the Hiroshima, or the massive explosion that had affected all the Lebanese who live in Lebanon and who live abroad. And even you have been living in Lebanon for almost 20 years now, and we consider you as Lebanese. You know, I always tell about you and lie that you are my Lebanese friends, not American friends. So now, if you want to sing a song for Beirut, what would you sing? If you can sing it now.
If I could sing it for... Oh, if I were to sing a song for... there are a lot of songs to choose from. There are songs of hope. There are songs that point straight to Jesus. But the song that I've been walking around singing to myself is Smile. Smile though your heart is breaking. Smile even though it's aching. When there are clouds in the sky, you'll get by. If you smile through your tears and sorrow, smile and maybe tomorrow you'll see that life is still worthwhile if you just smile.
Wow, amazing.
For me, it's about hope.
We need hope, actually. We need hope.
We need hope.
Because we have a long journey now to be able to stand up from inside before we stand up the material stuff.
Yes.
So, you know, I was talking to Kathie Lichtenwalter, who teaches violin. So, and I can ask you the same question to you, since your kids, you know, you took care of them in order to learn music. So, if you can tell me how much it had impacted you and how much you feel that learning music at the school times too, how much is exhausting, how much it takes time, and how much it disciplines your children, and what do you advise people who want to teach children to teach music to their children?
Yeah, you know, this is something I've not understood, particularly in Lebanon, because for a culture that values music and has such a rich musical tradition, music programs in schools are very lacking. It isn't until they reach a certain age when they start to really train them. There are a few academies that exist, some very well-known academies in Lebanon. I'll not name them, but they're doing a great job of reaching youth. But schools have children with them all day long, and they have the opportunity to give children the ability to express themselves through music. It's the language of the soul. All the things that you said are right. And so from the youngest ages, from the time they enter school, music should be one of the most important programs, not a side program where kids go and it's total chaos and, you know, it's an extra hour for play. No, they should be teaching them how to read music so that they can go further in their journeys. You don't know what potential you have in you until you try it. So I remember when I was a kid, my mother wanted me to take the violin. The violin's a very tough instrument to play as your first instrument. It's very particular, and there are more forgiving instruments. That's why we usually start kids on the piano. The notes are very stable. You hit a C, it sounds like a C. But on a violin, when you're playing a stringed instrument, it might take you some time, and that's why all of that shrieking sound is hard to get through. So I didn't learn to play the violin. I started with piano. But I think all kids should have the opportunity to explore their musical talents. I believe everyone can do something musically. When people tell me I can't sing or I can't play an instrument, I think they're just not confident. But if you try, if kids are exposed to many different kinds of music, many different kinds of instruments, and singing opportunities, they will find something that fits them, and it helps them. You can do the research. that is already well known and how it affects the brain, how it enhances other skills like math and analytical thinking. So we shouldn't have to defend music through science, but it is beneficial to schools to invest in their music programs for children.
That's really good. Do you think that children who learn music can have more productivity than those who don't learn music?
Oh, that's a tough question. Productivity, I don't know, but I think they have more opportunities to show compassion to lots of different groups of people. Music is an avenue into the people's lives in so many different ways. Everyone appreciates music. We all have different tastes and styles, but everyone appreciates music. So there's a music for every occasion.
Yeah. You know that we have Fairuz in Lebanon. And whenever you go like to Jordan, to Egypt, to the Gulf region, and whenever you go to where Lebanese people like in Sydney, United States, Michigan, many places, in the morning people love to listen to Fairuz. And you know that President Macron, when he decided to come to visit someone that all the Lebanese love, and most of the Arabs love, he chose Fairuz.
Good choice.
Actually, it's not political.
Yes.
But you know, he himself, when he spoke about Fairuz, after he left her house, he had like some tears in his eyes because he felt that he met someone really, really important and really big in the world of music. So, do you think there's the clean music and bad music? What do you advise children to listen to and parents to give their children to listen to?
Oh, that's a really good question. For sure, there's clean and there's not clean and everything. In the performing arts, that gets a little tricky because by definition, arts are about exploration and the lines of good versus bad are very blurry. Of course, I think it's best for children to start with music that taps into their culture, that taps into themes that are familiar to them, themes of family and community and behaviors. That there are lots of children's songs that address these things, but and historical songs of their culture. So if you're talking about Lebanese, yeah, Fairuz, you have to.
Yeah.
I know this is controversial for many people because people it depends on how religious they are. Some very religious people only listen to religious music. For me, I don't ascribe entirely to that. I can appreciate good secular music as well. In fact, some of the greatest composers were secularists, and some of them were quite crazy, to be honest. But we still appreciate their music, Beethoven and Mozart and all the rest. We don't throw away their music just because they weren't spiritual. You see what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
But we have to be discerning. The point is, no matter from where you get your music, parents should help, yes, definitely, help their children discern music that brings out the best in us, just like anything else. We should feed our soul so that what's going in, is good, and what comes out would be good. And music, when the best comes out of us, it's appreciated by more people.
Yeah, of course. Actually, regarding what you're saying, you remind me by Majda Rumi. Majda Rumi is also like one of the Lebanese famous singers. She also sings music for all, like especially Beirut. You remember when the Lebanese revolution started, like it's almost 1 year ago now, people listened to Majda Rumi, Beirut, and before the blast, people were singing for Beirut, and after the blast, we could all listen to this song. So all the world heard this song, which is like revolutionist. Many other songs that are revolutionist, but when people wanted to be like without sex, without religion, without color, they wanted to listen to good music.
Yes.
So how much do you feel that like patriotic people would be attached to songs that are related to their countries, and how much it impacts the new generation?
Well, again, I'm American, and I don't know how many, we don't have a rich recent cultural history of let's say, patriotic songs, except for a few. There are a couple. I think patriotism should make us better citizens. It should not make us exclusivists. I don't believe in patriotism. I don't believe patriotism equals exclusivity or nationalism and that other people are not welcome here. So I just want to define that carefully for myself, because
Yes.
for some, their patriotism crosses a line where it's us versus them. And I don't think that's what you mean, but just to be clear that there are some people who listen to music that feeds that, fuels that.
Yes.
I think that we should love the country that we are from, that the country that we live in. I love Lebanon very much, and I love this song, this Beirut song. I love all patriotic songs that stir within me something that is about love. I think this is it. When a patriotic song stirs love within you, love for your country, love for people, love for being a better citizen, for empowering your communities, not just your own.
Yes.
And that's what I've loved. That's what I've seen since the explosion, and I've gone down to help. This is a new generation. I see people half my age. I'm the oldest one every time I go somewhere. And no one my age is found where I am. They are below 30 and they are sweeping. You've seen it. Sweeping glass and cleaning up. And when I said, when have I seen this in 20 years in Lebanon? Never. This young generation, they don't ask, where you're from. They don't care. Everyone's working together, singing it the same songs as you said, and this is beautiful. So patriotic songs should stir a love for our country, but love for each other as well.
Yeah, this is really amazing, actually. This is exactly what I meant, actually. There are some songs that you listen to them, but when you are in hard times, you listen to a song that's for all.
Mm-hmm.
Like when Majda sang for Beirut, and when Fayrouz said, "Min qalbi salamun li Beirut,"
Mm-hmm.
I send peace from all my heart to Beirut.
Mm-hmm.
She gathered all the people around Beirut to love Beirut. So as you said that music, and as we said in the introduction, that music gathers all the people together.
Yes.
How much have you experienced this in Lebanon?
Well, as I said recently, more than ever. More than ever. I think, talk about getting lemonade from lemons. The explosion was awful, but of course, it goes without saying, unconscionable, a crime against humanity, a crime against the Lebanese people, of course. However, the good, the hope that has come from it, to see people stirred within them. This is it. Music, there's something about music that motivates our souls to action, to emotion. Emotion motivates us. When you fall in love, it motivates you to want to be with someone, to take care of them, to protect them, to please them, etc. Music does this for our souls, for if they're patriotic songs, again, for our country, to make it a better place. So,
there's a very important question I'd like to ask you.
Sure.
When it's a Christmas, all Lebanese people like to celebrate the Christmas. It's not about religion, but because they know that the Master of Peace has born. So all people want to celebrate the Christmas, but sometimes people listen to Christmas songs that are not related to Jesus. How can they be aware of these songs?
How can they be aware of the songs about
listening,
Jesus?
Yes, of listening to songs that they are not related to Christmas. They think they are related to Christmas, but they are not related to Christmas.
Well, I think, again, I told you, when I was growing up, I only knew about Santa Baby, Jingle Bell Rock, Rocking Around the Christmas Tree. There's a cultural tradition of Christmas that exists arguably around the world that has nothing to do with Jesus. It's true.
Yes.
Very often it comes because it's in the darkest places of the world. It's about celebrating light that we want to welcome into our homes. So it has a secular history that is not directly attached to Jesus. Of course, for Christians, it means the birth of the Savior, the truest light that came into the world in the darkest of days. So I think we just have to accept that there will always be people who celebrate the secular aspect and just want to welcome light into the world. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I appreciate, and we can have fun with these kinds of songs. But as believers, And as people who want to share this message of light and love and hope to the rest of the world, we should get it out more. We should share this music widely. Again, this is what started me on my journey of asking who Jesus is, by singing Christmas carols.
Yeah.
So there are, even in our schools, when I was working in a school, the children were singing Christmas carols, and I used to pray all the time for them that they would really understand who they were singing about. So again, it's just an opportunity. We just keep doing it.
You know what I know about you and your family? You have invested lots of time, energy, and money to help Lebanese people, and especially at these times when people are too much in need for help. So if you want to sing to the Lebanese people during Christmas time, what is the song you will sing to them, like for Christmas at this time, so they can be comforted before we end this episode?
Oh, my favorite song is Mary Did You Know? This song has become very popular throughout the world. When I was a teenager, I saw Mark Lowry, who wrote this song. He is a Christian who used to do stand-up comedy and go around from church to church. And I bought a cassette tape of that performance and listened to it until it broke. I'd actually memorized the entire thing. He is a brilliant comedian, singer, and eventually became a songwriter. So this song came out maybe 35 years ago. I'm not even sure now. It's a very long song, but it's you want me to sing it?
Yeah, please.
I don't know if I can sing all of it, but it's Mary, did you know that your baby boy would one day walk on water? Mary, did you know that your baby boy would save our sons and daughters? Did you know that your baby boy has come to make you new? This child that you've delivered will soon deliver you.
Amazing, amazing.
This is it. It's all about Jesus.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a blessing to have you with us here.
Thank you. It's a
I want
pleasure.
to thank you so much for the joy you brought to this episode and to Family Awareness Talk Show. Thank you so much for watching us. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.